picture that we notice all the things about the shoes, right? But perhaps it is only in the picture that we notice all the things about the shoes. The peasant woman, on the other hand, simply wears them. In looking at the picture, in the presentation of the image, we're sent. Joseph Campbell talks about this, right? We're sent mentally somewhere else. We see the image of the woman, right? You know what I think of, to be honest with you? There's that scene in, it has nothing to do with the peasant woman. It probably is my absolute most favorite movie scene. And Russell Crowe, it's not Braveheart, it was, oh my God, Gladiator. Russell Crowe, Gladiator, when he's talking about Valhalla, and you see his hand on the grains of wheat, and you just see the hand trail over the wheat, like the tops of the wheat. Oh my goodness, because he's talking about heaven, right? He's talking about the afterlife, but instead of just seeing him talk about the afterlife, the cinematographer, in all of his genius, directs us to a visual representation of the afterlife. What's so freaking genius about the scene is that the afterlife is visually depicted as him in a field of wheat, which is clearly here in the world. But there was a sense in which the wheat was transcended, right? The wheat wasn't functioning as wheat. The wheat in that scene was not functioning as wheat. It wasn't being reaped. It wasn't being harvested. The wheat became a symbolic representation of the fluidity, the dynamism of what people think the afterlife might be like, right? It's this amorphous, I mean, it was freaking genius, right? What the cinematographer did was he or she, the wheat became more than wheat. It was ridiculous. I mean, the metaphors go on. The similes, it gets ridiculous, because the wheat then was a means of sustenance and nourishment. It's a representation of life. It's a representation of vitality. It's a representation of all things good. I mean, we need this to survive. And there he is, the warrior, with his hand just playing. Oh. If that's not art, I don't know what art is. The idea is we need to see that visual depiction because it conjures up so much. But for Maximus, he's just in the field, just walking. He's not aware of it. When we see the picture of the shoes, and we look at the mud, and we look at the tattered edges, and we look at the holes in the wear on the shoe itself, it is a reminder to us of the effort of the peasant woman. But she's not interested in any of that. She looks at the shoe, she doesn't think a second about the shoe. I don't sit down and look at the implements of my profession and say, wow, an expo marker, wow, the ability to erase ink on a whiteboard, wow. But if I really think about it, if I really think about this, and I said this in another video, it hit me once, because I got hate. I got a whole bunch of hate. I don't know why I get so much hate, but I got a ton of hate. And, you know, somebody sent some really, really super nasty crap. Like epic level, racial nasty, stupid nasty, you know, just ignorant nasty. You know, and I thought to myself, I was like, who would have thought? What am I doing in the world? You know, I got a set of notes, I got a magic marker and a freaking whiteboard. But it's like the wheat, in a sense. And I'm not trying to give myself too much praise, but I'm a Nietzschean, so I ain't going to be humble either. There's a sense in which this isn't about. It's really not just an expo marker at this point, right? Without this, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. It becomes more, right? I need this in order to communicate my idea. I need a surface with which this is receptive. I need notes to guide me so that it's not just freestyling me up here being cute and smart, right? That this is actually meaningful. It's the combination of all of that that makes this possible. But when I'm using these things, I'm not aware of it. It's not until now I sit back and I have to think about, no, seriously, what is it that, what does this do for, this does a lot for me. Like, I'm starting to think now, like, when I die in my coffin, like, I gotta have one of these. You know what I'm saying? And, like, one of my favorite lecture notes, and just, you know, I'm gonna be cremated. So, like, I want to be part of the expo, part of the notes, call it a night, right? I never think about that, though, right? I never think about it until a moment like this, where you have to sit back and reflect. And that's what art does, right? Art causes you to look internally. And it'll have different meaning for us all. There is no right interpretation. There is no wrong interpretation. There is no being right or being wrong. It is the impact, right? It is the impact that it has for you, right? It is the effect that you feel, affect. It is the affect that you feel, right? That influence, the way in which the art motivates your action. Certainly some people listen to Wheezy and get crunk and do stupid stuff, right? But to think that people don't listen to Bach and go off and do stupid stuff, you know, if I was I'd love to see that scene, right? In a movie where the serial killer, before he goes out to commit a heinous act of murder, puts on, you know, soft, lulling music and sharpens his blade, right? It can be anything to anybody. It is the individual. It's how you process the information that's going to tell me about your character. I have a better sense of who you are by how art and the aesthetic world affects you when you are presented with these images. How do you respond? Like, when you're presented with this music, how do you respond? It's not that the music is right. You hear this crap all the time. Ozzy Osbourne, Marilyn Manson, oh my goodness, blah, blah, blah. They're causing the kids to do evil in the world. Are you serious? No, the kids are evil. It's not the music. No, I put that on and I zone out and I do stupid stuff. I solve a Rubik's Cube. You put that on and you sharpen tools to go kill people. Well, you're an evil fucker. Shame on you, right? It's not the music. You saw that and it sent you there. It sent you there, right? It sent you there. So it's not a fault of the music as it is a fault of the individual. Okay, so I'm going to read this last bit and then I'm going to pause the video and come back because I'm not going to have much more time on my battery to continue. So, the usefulness of the equipment for the user is the equipment's reliability, right? The usefulness of the equipment for the user is the equipment's reliability. The functional use of the equipment, however, occurs without the user's knowledge and awareness of its use. So I'm going to pause right here. When I come back, I'll read that passage again, and then I'll explain it, and we'll continue. Okay, so bottom of page 6, to pick up where we left off. The usefulness of the equipment for the user is the equipment's reliability. The functional use of the equipment, however, occurs without the user's knowledge and awareness of its use. Right? The usefulness of the equipment is the equipment's reliability. If I grab this hammer and I hit a nail and the head of the hammer is dislodged from the shaft, I don't know if that's the terms, that sounds very phallic, but if the head of the hammer is dislodged from the shaft, well, it fails to be a reliable hammer. More so if I take the hammer and I hit a nail and it's wobbly. Every time I strike it, it's wobbly, it makes me think of the hammer. My awareness of the hammer collapses the proper function of the equipment. I shouldn't be aware that the head of the hammer is, whatever it's called, is wobbly. If, however, it's a hammer and it does what it's supposed to do, and it's there always ready for me to grab, and I say, hey, I need a hammer, and I grab the hammer, and I start using it, and it feels like a hammer should feel, I'm not aware of the fact that the hammer is doing what it's supposed to do, it just does it, and therefore the hammer becomes a very reliable hammer. The next time I think about using a hammer, and there are two hammers, the wobbly head hammer and the other hammer, I'm clearly going to select the hammer that has performed for me before. It allows me to do what I need to do. Similarly, for my lecture series, if you engage me virtually, because most of you will never engage me biologically, but if you engage me virtually and I fail you in some sense, because I can't be all things for all people, well, this might not be the lecture